Hello, Sheriff. You can come on up here, please.
Good morning.
Sir, if you raise your right hand. Raise your right hand. You swear to find and testify you should give to the court the truth and the truth but yourself, God?
I do.
Be seen, state your first name, last name for the court. Speak loudly.
Howard Sills.
Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning.
First of all, let me thank you for 3 days here to testify in these proceedings. And you stated for the record that your name is Howard Seals, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're the sheriff of Putnam County here in Georgia.
That's correct.
How long have you been the sheriff of Putnam County?
20 years, 4 months, and some odd days.
Okay. And how long have you been in law enforcement?
43 years.
Right. Do you know this gentleman, Mr. McIver?
I do.
Did you know his wife, Miss Diane McIver?
I did.
And did you visit with them at their ranch?
Many times.
Okay. And did you know Mr. McIver when he owned that ranch before he married Diane McIver?
Yes.
Okay. Let me show you what's marked as Defendant's Exhibit Number 1. Your Honor, I'm going to put a copy on defense counsel's table.
On the state's table?
Yes, on the state's
Okay.
table. I'll just hand it up to Defendant 1. Sheriff, I've just placed in front of you what's marked as Defendant's Exhibit Number 1. Do you recognize this document?
I do, sir.
All right. What is the title on this document?
Gun list.
All right. And if you look at the upper left-hand corner of this document, what is the date on this document?
January 23, 16.
All right. Did you create this document?
No, sir.
All right. When did you first see this document?
I first saw this on Christmas Eve of 2016, December 24th, at Mr. McIver's residence in Putnam County when I collected his firearm.
And is it your understanding that Mr. McIver actually was granted bond on December 22nd, 2016?
Yes, sir. I was aware of that.
And he actually got out of jail on December 23rd, 2016?
I think it was that day, yes, sir.
And the next day he was down in Putnam County with you working on Defendant's Exhibit Number 1?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What were you doing at the ranch on December 24th with Mr. McIver working through Defendant's 1?
Well, like I said, I knew that he told me he had to surrender his firearms as a condition of, well, not surrender, but could not possess any firearms as a condition of bond. And I suggested that I just take them for him and put them in the evidence room in the sheriff's office.
All right.
Javier was there, and there was a gun safe. I backed up my car to the garage where the gun safe was, and we were literally, Javier and I were literally taking the guns out, putting them into my car.
Who's Javier?
Javier works for Tex, maintains the ranch, and for the life of me, I forgot his last name. Right
That's
this
okay,
second.
but it's an employee of Mr. McIver, not of the sheriff.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay.
And this list was provided to me, and I was checking off this list what I was actually getting.
Yes.
Okay, and that's why I had it.
All right. Your Honor, I move into evidence Defendant's Exhibit Number 1.
Any objection from the state as to Defense 1?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, it's admitted.
All right. Now, as we look at Defendant's Exhibit Number 1, the first thing I notice is that let me ask it this way. In looking at the list, I see that down the side of the list, there are locations named under the heading Comments Location. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
And it says office closet, black truck, front door, kitchen. Are these the areas in which it was represented to you these guns were originally located?
Where they had been, yes, sir.
Right. And this list, did you come to understand that this list was prepared by Mr. McIver back on January 23rd, 16?
Yes, sir, because he said some of the guns weren't here, that the comments were.
And
I need you to pause for a second because I'm confused. I thought, Sheriff, you said it was December 24th that you're collecting the guns.
Yes, sir.
But this list we're talking about is created January 23rd.
Yes.
2016, yes. Can I hand you up a
It's
copy?
later, but so how are you even familiar with this list?
It's later, not earlier.
I'm not familiar with it until that day.
You've never seen this list before today?
Oh, no, sir, I saw it. This is the actual document handed to me on December 24th of 2016. And until today, it has been in the evidence, well, until yesterday, it has been in the evidence room of the Putnam County Sheriff's Office.
So what's the 12316 notation?
The list was created in January for insurance purposes. January of 2016. Sheriff didn't see it until December of 2016, at the end of the calendar year.
Oh, I'm getting 17. Okay, so this is something that Mr. McIver or someone on his behalf, here's what I have in my house in case the house
Yes.
burns down or whatnot.
Yes, and it was created while Miss McIver was still in
Still
life.
alive?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
All right. Now, when we...
So, I'm not done.
Yes, sir.
You, Sheriff, had not seen this list before you offered to help get the guns out of Mr. McIver's house?
That's correct.
Okay. This was sort of a checklist to work through.
That's what I was using it for, yes, sir, Your Honor.
Click. Thank you.
All right. And when we look at this list of firearms, if you go with me to page 2 of the list, I see at the bottom there is a Glock Model 19, serial number GDX984.
Yes, sir.
All right. And I also see where it says gave to Billy, where it's circled, and underneath it says gone.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So on December 24th, 2016, 2 days after a day after Mr. McIver had been released on bond, and you were in the process of collecting firearms, were you able to find GDX 984?
No, sir, I did not have that one.
Okay. And what was told to you as to why you couldn't find GDX 984?
It was told to me that it was had been given to Billy Corey as a gift.
Okay. Now, are you aware that the Kingsborough Road condo, all of the weapons in that condo had been removed when Mr. McIver was released on bond?
Yes, that's what he told me.
Okay. And did he tell you that it was done by 2 female friends? They had gone through the condo and moved all the guns next door to Miss Calhoun's condo.
Yes, I asked him about that.
Now, did Mr. McIver ever tell you that those 2 ladies had created a list of the firearms that they moved out of the condo? Okay. Have you ever seen a list for those firearms?
No,
So the only list that you had was what's marked as Defendant's Exhibit Number 1, correct?
well, I made another list for my records of what we took, but this is the only list that was ever provided to me.
All right. Now, we were able to determine that there was a 9mm Glock discovered in the Kingsborough Road condo on April 14, 2017, and that the serial number was KBU 446.
Yes, sir.
Were you able to find on Defendant's Exhibit Number 1 a firearm with the serial number KBU 446?
No, sir.
Okay. What is Baines in Milledgeville? Baines Army Store.
Baines Army Store is a sporting goods store. It used to sell a lot of Army surplus stuff. Actually, now it mainly just sells hunting and fishing supplies, guns. I think they still sell softballs and things like that. It's that kind of stuff. It's been there many, many years.
Okay. Were you ever asked to check and try and determine the ownership of a black Glock serial number KBU 446?
Yes, sir, I will.
Tell us how that happened.
The day after the search warrant was executed, Mr. McIver called me and he asked me could I run a trace on that firearm.
Yes.
And I told him that I would see but that I didn't think I needed to check, but I would have to check and see, but I didn't think that I could do that through the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms unless I had an actual investigation.
Yes.
And obviously I did not. And I told him that I couldn't use ATF to run that trace. I said, and I told him, I said, well, you know, where do you buy your guns, Tex? And he said, I buy most of them for the last decade or so, I think he said, at Baines Army Store in Milledgeville. I was Chief Deputy Sheriff of Baldwin County for many years. I know the Baines, I knew the father, I knew the grandparents. And I said, I'll call down there and ask them if that gun was ever sold. And I did. I also asked them about another serial number, another gun too. And Victor Bain, one of the owners, he called me back, not that day, maybe the next day, maybe 2 days later, and told me that he could not find a record of that gun or the other gun being sold in their establishment.
All right. So Victor Baines called you back and said he could not find a record of KBU 446, the black Glock, having been sold.
That is correct.
And I'm sorry, go on.
After that, I called Glock and asked them. The process would be the manufacturer or the importer would generally send it to a wholesaler. Sometimes they go directly to a dealer. But I knew that Glock could tell me where it went. Glock told me within about 5 minutes that it had been shipped on May the 26th of 2006 to Williams Shooting Supply, which is a wholesaler in Quincy, Illinois.
Right. And that was as far as you could get, as far as...
I could have gotten, Father, but I just didn't. I told Mr. McIver what I found out. I didn't mind helping to some extent, but I didn't go further than that. Glock told me that ATF had run the same gun. Would have asked them to inquire, so I assumed that law enforcement in Atlanta would have run the gun. I would have if I had been conducting an investigation. That's a normal police procedure to do.
All right. So at the end of the day, you were not able to tell Mr. McIver who purchased that black Glock 984.
That's what I did.
Now, where are the firearms that you removed from Mr. McIver's ranch?
The evidence room in my office.
Has Mr. McIver ever asked you to return to him any of those firearms?
No, sir.
After Ms. McIver's death in September 26, 2016, and before Mr. McIver's release on bond, December 22nd, 2016, in that interval of time, have you ever had a conversation with Mr. McIver about hunting or handling a firearm?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell us about that?
A few days after he first came back to Eatonton, this would have been a few days after the incident, and he was having dinner at my house with my wife and I. Tex had gone with me and some other people hunting in South Dakota. I go pheasant hunting out there every year, and I suggested that, you know, come on, Tex, why don't you just go with us out to South Dakota? We've got room for another person. And he said, Howard, I don't want to touch a gun.
Right.
And that, other than getting these guns, that's only, and asking about that gun, we haven't had any other gun conversations since.
All right. Since Mr. McIver was released on bond, actually on December 23rd, 2016, have you seen him in possession of a firearm?
No,
Has he ever asked you for any of his guns back?
no, sir.
Let me ask you, has Mr. McIver surrendered his firearms carry license?
Yes, he called me one day and suggested that he wanted to surrender his weapons carry license, and he actually gave it to me, and then several days later I turned it over to the probate court, our probate judge, rather.
All right. Let me show you what I've marked as Defendant's Exhibit Number 2. I'm going to provide a copy to the district attorney. Can you tell us what is defendant's exhibit number 2?
This is a certified copy of a court ordering the temporary suspension of Claude Lee McIver III's Georgia weapons carry license issued by the probate court of Buckingham County.
All right, and while I believe that these proceedings were instituted by the DA with a motion to revoke bond that was filed on April 19th, what is the date on the certified document marked as defendant's exhibit number 2?
It was the court's order was February 14th. It was actually surrendered on February 1st, but I waited several days before I took it to the court.
All right, so defendant, the surrender took place months before the DA instituted these proceedings.
Oh, yes, sir.
Sheriff, a carry license such as this is necessary to conceal carry a weapon?
That's a little bit of a misunderstanding, Your Honor. In order to carry a handgun on your person in the state of Georgia, outside of your home, property, place of business, concealed or otherwise, it is necessary to have one of these weapons carry licenses issued by the probate court. It also will enable you to go into a gun store and bypass the background check and instantly buy a weapon.
But if I want to be patient and buy a weapon and have a background check done and keep a gun just in my home for safety, I don't need a carry license.
Yes. If you not for your home or your car, or your place of business, or land.
I want to take you back to December of 2016, shortly after Mr. McIver was released on bond, but before Christmas. Did you have any conversation with Mr. McIver about his trepidation in traveling to Texas to see his mom because of the bond?
Yes. He asked me about that, and he was wanting to see his mother, and I looked at the bond conditions, and I said, I don't see any prohibition, that would restrict you from going. And of course, he was concerned about doing anything, that would might even remotely revoke his bond. And then I said, well, and he had this ankle monitor on and all that, and we went on and on about that for some time, and he didn't go out of fear that even though it wasn't spelled out as a condition, he didn't go. And then later, I think that was clarified in this, well, not this court, but a court.
All right. Your Honor, can I have just a moment?
Sure. Sure.
BAYNE''S. Yes, ma'am.
Question, I didn't spell it that way. So the last name is Bain.
Yes, sir.
And then the gun store would be, or military store, Bain.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Hill.
Yes, sir. I think I have just maybe one or two additional questions, just for some amplification. You had a telephone conversation with Mr. McIver, and Mr. McIver asked you to help him understand or ascertain the ownership of the black Glock that was found in the sock drawer, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In your conversation with Mr. McIver, was the conversation very much like the conversation you and I are having, very measured, very matter of fact, or was it emotionally laden? Did you form any impression about his state of mind?
Well, he was a little alarmed.
Mm-hmm.
He said, they did a search warrant and they found a gun there. I did. He said, I don't know. He was very adamant that he didn't know anything about the gun. Can you do a trace on it? And I said, well, I don't think I can. I'll try to see what I can find out about it, and I did. But he was a little disturbed at the time. It wasn't a conversation that we're having now.
How long have you known Mr. McIver?
If I remember right, he bought that property in 1996 or around that time, so close to 20. After he bought that property, I don't know, it could have been some judges or other attorneys or somebody that introduced him to me, and we became friends over the years, so close to 20 years.
Okay, and those 20 or 21 years, have you ever known Mr. McIver to lie to you?
No, sir.
Thank you very much, y'all.
I'm going to see if the prosecution has any questions for you, but I want to make sure, I was confused by, I got confused about this list, and I was thinking January 2017. I'm straight on that now, but I probably missed your description of where the guns went on Christmas Eve. So you came to collect them because Mr. McIver asked you to, or you offered?
I offered that, yeah. He told me that he could not possess, that's a condition of law that I've dealt with before. I've actually gone officially and done this on occasions, or certainly my deputies have too. And I said, look, the best thing to do is, look, I'll come over there. I knew he had a lot of guns, and I said, I'll come over there and get them, and I'll just put them in the evidence, right?
Okay, so that was part two of my question. You offered, and they went not to your property, but they're on public property. They are in the sheriff of Putnam County's evidence room.
They didn't go that day. I went back home because it was Christmas Eve. My wife wanted me to come home, and they went.
We won't revoke your bond.
They went to December the 26th.
Okay, but that's where they are now.
Yes, sir. They have been ever since.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Abate, do you have any questions for Sheriff Sills?
Yes, Your Honor, I have a few. Good afternoon, Sheriff Sills. How are you? Good. Now, Defense Exhibit number 1. Yes, do you have that?
Yes, sir.
If you need a copy, you can borrow mine. Yeah.
This is correct. This is just a list of the guns from his Putnam County ranch, correct?
No, sir. There are guns on there that I did not receive from that ranch.
Okay. Which guns did you not receive from that ranch?
Could I see?
Yeah.
I did not receive the Glock 19 serial number GDX 984 on page 2 that says given to Billy. Give me just a second because I've got a list here. On page 7, there are 2 guns listed there without serial numbers. A Smith & Wesson .380 caliber. I definitely do not have that. A Smith & Wesson military and police .40 caliber. There's no serial number listed, but I do have a gun of that make and model. Okay. On page 8, well, the first gun is a BB gun or a pellet gun, and therefore it isn't a firearm, and I didn't take it. It remained behind.
Is that the Daisy
Yes,
model
Daisy
1998?
model 1998. It was an air gun. And the Marlin model 917 beneath that, 17 caliber, I do not have it. The Taurus model, whatever it is, 410 shotgun, I don't have that. A Henry lever action .22 rifle, I don't have that. And then the Smith & Wesson 22 caliber rifle beneath that, I don't have that. Now, Javier did take several of the guns to his house while I was there. Since I wasn't taking those into my custody, I didn't make, they could have been some of these guns, sir.
But you don't know for
No,
sure?
sir, I don't.
So on this list, you don't have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, you didn't say anything about page 4, but if it says Javier's house, it's not in your possession.
No, that one I
correct?
do have.
You do have that one?
Yes, sir.
But the list says Javier's house?
Well, as I understand it, this list was created almost a year before it was given to me.
Okay. Is there any indication on page 4, on the gun that says Javier's house, on this list that you have that gun?
No, sir. I didn't make, I'm gonna stress to you, I didn't make this list. I was just using it to go over what I had.
Okay.
What I'm hearing you say, Sheriff, is that if we went to that now famous evidence room, there would be a Marlin Model 917 with a serial number ending in 704.
Absolutely, Your Honor.
Okay.
Now, on the firearms that you don't have, did you do a check on those?
No, sir.
So, is it fair to say you have no idea where they are?
No, sir, I haven't. Well, let me say this. I don't know what guns he had at the condo in Atlanta. I have no idea. Obviously, there's these annotations on this list that was made in January make reference to other places they were, I assume, then.
Yes, sir.
And then, as I said, there were 2 or 3 guns that Javier took over to his house, which is right down just a few hundred yards away.
And this list you said was created on January 23rd of 2016, is that correct?
Yes, that's what it's dated, yes, sir.
And
I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't want to lose this thought. Javier's house, you said, was just a few hundred yards away.
It's on Mr. McIver's property. It's got a separate driveway. You'd have to go out of his driveway, go down the road just 100 yards or 2, and then turn and go back in there. But he left there with...
Okay, so I understand you weren't responsible for them. I'm not trying to make you responsible for them. But if all that happened is that they moved from what we'll call Mr. McIver's house to Javier's house, they actually didn't leave McIver property.
That's correct, as
If that's
far
what
as
happened.
the real property is concerned, yes,
That's
sir.
what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
so the guns that are not, that you don't have, that are on this list, did you verify where they are?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you run their serial numbers at all?
No, sir.
So it's fair to say you have no idea where those guns are?
No more than what my previous testimony has been, yes, sir.
And did Mr. McIver tell you where these missing guns were?
As we were going over this list, obviously I had no idea that I would ever be in this situation. He made some reference, Diane gave some guns to people for Christmas, this one here and there, but I was concentrating only on what I was taking possession of.
So is your answer no, or that you don't recall?
My answer is that he did make reference about where guns were, but I don't recall specifically where those were.
Did you make notations?
No, sir. I was concentrating on what I was taking into possession, and it was a little concern to me at that juncture as to where these other guns might be.
Okay. Is it a concern today where those guns might be?
Anytime I testify in a court of law, I want to give the best answer and the most truthful answer I can, and I wish I had paid more attention at that time, and I would be able to answer your questions better.
So your best answer today is that you don't know where those guns are, correct?
Yes, sir.
He's made that rule. I got it.
So is it possible that they could be in Mr. McIver's possession?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, the gun that says gave to Billy Corey, did you verify with Mr. Corey that he had that gun?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you know Mr. Corey?
I do.
How long have you known Mr. Corey?
Personally, I knew of him when I was a detective in DeKalb County. I think I may have met him once way back then. But I've gone hunting with him. I've known him pretty much as long as I've known Tex and Diane.
Okay.
But he's not I've never been to his home or anything like that.
Have you socialized with him?
Well, yes, sir. I have with them, in their company, yes, sir.
And do you have his phone number?
I can check and see. If it's not in my cell phone, I don't, but I can check and see. Okay. No, sir, I did not.
Okay. Now, the guns from his Kingsborough, or from the 34, 35 Kingsborough condos, I'll ask a better question. Did you know there were guns in the Kingsborough condo?
No, sir, I did not know that, but I assumed that, and I asked him about that.
And what did he say?
As I recall, it said Janie and somebody got those, and they took them to Janie's house, I think, as I recall. Yes.
Okay. And did you know that Janie and somebody had gotten those guns twice?
No, sir, not that I know of.
Did you know after the first time that Janie and another person seized those guns, gave them back to Mr. McIver?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, you said that you called Glock to verify where the 984 KBU gun came from? Is that what you said?
The KBU 446 gun.
I'm sorry.
I called Glock and asked them where it had been shipped to, yes, sir.
And where did they tell you it had been shipped to?
Williams Shooting Supply in Quincy, Illinois.
And have you had a chance to look at State's Exhibit number 19?
No, sir, I've not seen any states. I've not seen any exhibits other than 1 and 2 defense.
Okay. Well, can I have you look at State's Exhibit 19 for me, please?
Yes, sir.
And what is State's Exhibit 19?
This is what you get back when you do an ATF trace, and it tells you who purchased the firearm when it was new, the first transaction.
Okay. And who purchased the firearm when it was new?
John Rogers McIver.
And do you know who John Rogers McIver is?
I do.
Okay. And who is John Rogers McIver?
That's Tex's brother. I know him as Spike.
Okay. And when did he purchase that gun?
November 25th, 2006, according to this document.
And what was your information that you got from Glock again?
That they had shipped the gun to Williams Shooter Supply in Quincy, Illinois on May 26th of 2006. It's not a gun store, it's a wholesale distributor. You can't walk in there and buy a gun.
So is it fair to say, based on what you learned from Glock and what you know from this ATF report, that Mr. McIver's brother purchased that gun after it was shipped to Illinois?
At some juncture, well, obviously, yes, sir, afterwards, yes, sir.
And after Mr. McIver's brother purchased that gun, you have no idea what happened to it. Is that correct?
Well, obviously, I know where it is now.
So, since you know where it is now, it's quite possible that Mr. McIver's brother gave Claude McIver the firearm.
Objection, Your
Answer the
Honor.
question yet.
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation now.
It's something you can argue later, but
Okay.
possible, possibly not. Certainly Sheriff Sills doesn't know. Unless you do know that his brother gave it to him.
No, sir, I don't know.
Well, you know where it was found, correct?
I know where I was told it was found, yes, sir.
And is that where Mr. McIver's brother resides?
Well, no, sir, he resides in, I think he resides in Lee County or Collier County, Florida.
So he doesn't reside at the 34,
Oh, no,
35 Kingsborough condo.
No, sir, I've seen him, but I mean, he's been here, but it's been a little while.
Now let's talk about the day of the search warrant. Who contacted you first?
The first time I ever knew anything about this, you're talking about the condo search warrant?
Yes, sir.
First time I ever knew anything about that was the night that apparently the night after it happened. I received a call from Janie Calhoun.
You say the night after it happened, meaning the night
The night of.
The night of, but after the search was
Right.
done that evening,
Yeah.
Ms. Calhoun called you.
Yeah, Janie Calhoun called me and said that they had done a search warrant on the condo, and I said, well, I think everybody expected that, and she said that Tammy, and I'm sorry, I think her name's Johnson, only met her a couple of times. Somebody with the district attorney's office had showed it to her, and anyway, she wanted to know what to do with it. And I said, look, that she contacted Mr. Maples, Texas attorney. He wanted her to I said, look, you do, you're not a prisoner. You do whatever you think's the right thing. And that was the end of that conversation.
So the conversation, you didn't tell her where to take it?
No, sir.
Okay. And you've been a law enforcement officer for how many years?
43.
Okay.
Well, there was a short period of time when I was in corporate security with SunTrust Bank, but even then I was a Fulton County deputy sheriff.
Well, I consider that law enforcement.
Just right. I don't want to be very accurate as I can.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page here.
Yes.
And how long have you been the sheriff for Putnam County?
20 years and 4 months and some days.
And as someone in law enforcement, you're very familiar with bond conditions, isn't that correct?
Very much so.
Okay. And you said you and Mr. McIver have been friends for over 20 years or 20 years?
Well, about that, yes, sir.
And you were obviously aware of his bond conditions, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were contacted the night of the search warrant, right?
That is correct.
And you, after being contacted, you learned that the gun was found inside his home, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, as a law enforcement officer, why didn't you advise Miss Tammy or Miss Calhoun to turn it over to another law enforcement agency?
Don't answer yet. Mr. Hill?
Objection, Your Honor. That is irrelevant to the disposition of the issues before the court. It's absolutely irrelevant. The fact is, he did not advise her what to do with it.
Okay, I think the reason why it could be relevant as I work through all the conflicting testimony in this case. So I'll allow you to ask it. I'm going to follow up whether you ask it or not. So
I figured you would.
Go ahead.
So I guess my question is, why did you not advise either Miss Johnson or Miss Calhoun to turn it over to a law enforcement agency here in Fulton County?
Well, I was first surprised that they didn't take it. I didn't understand why they didn't take the weapon.
You're not the first person to express that during the 3 days of this hearing.
Obviously, I've done many search warrants, and I didn't understand why they didn't take it or obtain other means to take it, if they were being overly cautious. I knew that was, he wasn't supposed to have a firearm, and she's asking me, this is a civilian who was not anything that I know of, and I told her, you need to do, you can give it to the attorney if you want to. Don't give it to the attorney. You do what the right thing is. I was not wanting to give her legal advice. I certainly was not wanting to interfere in any kind of investigation. I thought that was the appropriate answer at the time.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the reason why is because the district attorney's office didn't take it, is why you told them to take it.
Objection.
I did not tell them.
Stop.
Objection, Your Honor. Mischaracterizes his
I'll-
testimony, and he's answered fully the question, so the question is asked and answered.
I'll rephrase.
Okay.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what your answer to the previous question is the reason why is because the district attorney's office left it and you just told them do what you think is right.
Yes, sir, but I very specifically did not tell her to take the gun and give it to anyone.
Right, you told her to do what you think is right, correct?
Correct.
Okay. After speaking with Ms. Calhoun, well, actually, during the conversation with Ms. Calhoun, did you also speak with Ms. Johnson?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Is that who was asking you what to do with the
Yes.
gun? Ms. Johnson.
Well, there was some, I think Janie did say something about that, and then she said, here, I want you to talk to Tammy.
Okay. And it's Tammy who received the advice, look, you're not a prisoner, you do what you think is right.
Yes, sir.
Did you speak to Ms. Johnson again that weekend?
Yes, sir.
When did you speak to Ms. Johnson?
The next day, when Mr. McIver called me and asked me to run a trace on this gun, I told him that I would need the serial number and the caliber of the weapon. And he said, well, he would have her, and I think she texted me the serial number, but not the caliber. And then I told her, if you would, turn it over on the, look on the other side. And I was having trouble explaining to her where to look. And finally I just told her, I said, look, send me a picture of the gun. And then she sent a picture of one side of it, and I said, just turn it over and take another picture of the other side of it. And that's how I was able to get the caliber and the, all that.
Now, this, I guess it's defense exhibit number 2.
Yes.
Was today the first time you've seen this? Or?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you actually go with Mr. McIver when it was filed?
No, sir. I asked the probate court to send it out, send me a certified copy of it.
Okay. So before Mr. McIver, I guess, filed this and had a temporary suspension of his firearms, did he tell you about it?
Objection, Your Honor. There's no testimony that Mr. McIver filed anything.
I can.
You may want to rephrase it. I think you're perfectly justified in asking this. And I'm sure Mr. Hill doesn't mean to obstruct you from asking questions about his exhibit, but why don't you rephrase?
Before defense exhibit 2 was filed, did Mr. McIver talk to you about it?
Yes.
Okay. And what kind of conversations did you have about state or defense exhibit number 2?
In an effort to absolutely comply with his bond conditions, we had a discussion back in February about surrendering this license. And he came by the office one day, I don't recall exactly that day, and he gave me that license. And I contacted the probate judge and said he was surrendering his license temporarily while these proceedings were going on. And later on, apparently on the 1st, I gave it to the probate judge. Then the probate judge, on the court's own volition, issued that order and filed it upon the minutes of her court.
Do you know if Mr. McIver knows Judge Underkoffler?
I would assume he does.
It's a tight-knit legal community there.
Yes, sir. I would assume most officers, yes, sir. I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't. I don't know
But
how
you
well
don't
he
know.
knows. No, sir.
And this was filed on February 1st, 2017, correct? Can you look at it?
That's apparently the date that I obtained it, or I gave it to the judge. Yes, sir. I don't know which date that is.
Well, when was it signed?
The order was signed on February the 14th. But I do remember that I kept it, on my desk for several days before the next time I went to the probate court. I don't go to the probate court every day.
Well, how long do you think you kept it?
Approximately 2 weeks based upon the dates, yes, sir.
And is it your opinion that getting this filed was pretty important to Mr. McIver?
I thought it was a prudent thing for him to do.
Well, you thought it was a prudent thing for him to do?
Yes, sir. I mean, he made a suggestion of it, and I thought that was a prudent thing for him to do.
Was getting that document filed very important to Mr. McIver?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation.
I'll rephrase. Based on your conversations with Mr. McIver, was getting that document filed very important?
My conversations with Mr. McIver and my conversations with the court, I had no idea that the court even generated this document.
After you learned that it was generated, and I'm assuming you spoke with Mr. McIver after, correct?
Yes, sir.
based on your conversations, was getting that document filed important to Mr. McIver?
Based on that conversation, I wouldn't say so because we didn't discuss it until several days ago.
So surrendering his license or his firearm license temporarily was not important to Mr. McIver. Is that what you're saying?
No, sir. I'm saying that
We've covered this ground too. Let's go to another topic, please.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, any redirect?
Just a few questions, Your Honor.
Sheriff, in a response to a question from Mr. Abate, you were describing your conversation with Janie Calhoun on the night of the search, Friday, April 14, 2017. Take you back to that date.
yes, sir.
Okay. And you spoke with Ms. Calhoun and with Tammy Johnson that night.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I assume they were sharing the phone with each other.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you said that one of the comments you made in that exchange, either with Ms. Calhoun or Ms. Johnson, was regarding the search, quote, everybody expected that. You recall that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Help me understand your statement, everybody expected that.
Well, I had conversations with Mr. McIver. He had told me that before this, that they were probably going to be, he asked me a question, if they do a search warrant in Putnam County, do they have to ask you? And I said, well, absolutely not. They have full authority, they're certified peace officers, to execute a search warrant anywhere in the state of Georgia if issued by an appropriate court of jurisdiction. And so this was before this. So, I mean, it was, I assumed that they were going to do it at both of his residences. I would.
All right. So prior to this April 14, 2017 search, you had a conversation with Mr. McIver and told him he should expect his condo to be searched.
Right, and even the ranch, I told him, I said, you need to fix it where they can get in. There's no, you know, he asked me, he said, well, if I'm not at home, can they break in? And I said, yes, sir. So if you don't want something torn up, you better, he was kind of, and I said, yes, sir, and you should. And, of course, I've instructed them to cooperate at all times.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Okay. May the sheriff step down?
Yes, and might he be released?
Can I ask one question?
Okay.
When did you have this conversation, sir?
With Mr. McIver?
Yes.
I don't know, several weeks ago.
Several weeks ago?
Yeah. Before this search warrant, I can't tell you the exact time.
Do you recall the date of the incident, sir?
It was in
Your Honor, incident vague.
Do you recall the day that Ms. McIver was shot?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall when Ms. McIver passed?
I think it was the same day, sir.
And what do you remember that day?
It was in September. I don't remember the exact day.
And is it your testimony that you had a conversation about us searching Mr. McIver, about the DA's office searching Mr. McIver's home, both homes, his condo and his Putnam County a few weeks ago?
Yes, sir.
So you had the conversation with Mr. McIver roughly 5 to 6 months after the shooting,
Well, yes, sir. If it's been that long, yes, sir.
out of the blue.
No, sir. I've talked to Mr. McIver many times. I've talked to his counsel.
But the topic coming out of the blue, why suddenly 6 months in, on the eve of the search, were you bringing up, hey, you should be ready for your places to be searched?
No, I was big. I had been informed, Your Honor, that this was going to happen. I mean, he had informed me of that.
Which was going to happen?
that search warrants were probably going to be executed at his home.
Okay.
He,
He, meaning Mr. McIver, told you he believed that might happen.
yes, and he asked me specifically, you know, if they come to Putnam County, would I have to be notified? And I said, no.
Okay, I followed all
Yes,
that. I missed
sorry.
the part. So you're saying it was Mr. McIver who brought up the topic of search warrants?
Oh, yes,
with
sir.
You, again, using you as his criminal defense attorney, to say, what should I do? How should I handle this?
Well, yes, well, I don't know, yes, sir. I don't know if he was asking me as his attorney, but yes, sir, he asked me those
Okay.
questions.
All right.
And that was just a few weeks ago.
Yes, sir.
But you don't like to give legal advice?
I give advice to people about health, their finances, land purchases. I'm a sheriff. People come to me all day, every day, asking me for all kinds of advice. I have advised Mr. McIver at all times to tell the truth and to cooperate. And I've certainly consulted with his counsel. Anytime law enforcement asks me anything, when the district attorney's office called to ask me to assist them in the execution of the search warrant in Putnam County, I had somebody there waiting the second they got it. I've tried to do the right thing, as I do every day, and I've done it in this case as I have in any other case.
Okay, no further questions.
Sheriff?
Be released.
Yes. Thank you for being here. 3 different times. We welcome you here anytime, and I appreciate you coming down for your testimony.
Thank you so much, Congressman.
You're welcome. Next witness, Mr. Hill.
Your Honor, that completes the evidentiary presentation on behalf of Mr. McIver. Several of the witnesses we intended to call were called by the state, and we were able to release them.
Okay. Mr. Abate, anything else from the state?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then I am happy to hear argument from both sides. I'll start with the move-in. I'll give you guys a chance to wrap up as well after you hear from the defense, but I'll start with you all. Did you have a question, Mr. Hill, before we transitioned into that?
No, sir.
Okay.
Your Honor, can we briefly approach for a quick second?
Okay. You guys come over. Back out, 240. Okay. We're going to take a 5-minute recess.
Was it Dixie? Tex.